This conference will now be recorded.
So today let us enter into one more new topic and very important, exception handling. So this will take 2 classes including today. So before we go to this exception handling, let us understand the different types of errors. We are having 3 types of errors. They are compile time or syntax errors. So can anyone take examples of syntax errors, compile time errors? What you have seen while working with programs?
Missing semicolons,
Right.
keywords.
Yeah, missing semicolon, double quotes missing, curly brace missing, using a variable without declaring, right? Then this type of errors are compile time errors. Like when you are writing the code in Eclipse, it will highlight that errors using red color lines. So based on the message given by compiler, we are going to rectify it. Means these compile time errors or syntax errors are taken care by compiler here. Like semicolon missing, curly brace missing, using a variable without declaring, calling a method without defining, like that. Spelling mistakes, all these things comes under compile time or syntax errors. Then one more, we are having logical or semantic errors. Logical or semantic errors. So what these are is like the output of your program is wrong. Whatever the output you are expecting, we are not getting that output. Like example, we want to find sum of 1 to 10. To find the sum of 1 to 10, we are writing the logic like this. Int sum equal to 0. Then we'll say for int I equal to 1, I less than 10, I plus plus. Then we'll write here sum equal to sum plus I. After this for loop, if you print the value of sum, so what is the value of sum it's going to display for us? Sum of 1 to 10 is 55, but from this piece of code, what is the value of sum it is going to display?
1.
Not 1.
45.
The loop repeats for how many times? Yeah, very good, 45. The loop repeats for what? 9 times here. 9 times, because we said I less than 10 means 10 is not included. So it's going to find sum of 1 to 9 only. So sum of 1 to 10 is 55 means sum of 1 to 9 is what? 45. 55 minus 10, 45. But expected is 55. So what you are expecting, if you are not getting such type of errors only we call logical errors. So who should take care of these logical errors? Who should take care of logical errors? Programmer only. Who should take care of logical errors? Programmer. So the errors which occur when you are running the program and what are the output if you are expecting, if you are not getting such type of outputs, we call them as logical or semantic errors. We are having one more type of errors called as runtime errors, or even we call exceptions. Even we call it as what? Exception. So the meaning of runtime error is, while writing the code to see the result of your application, we have to run it. During that time, if you are getting errors, we call them as runtime errors or even exception. How to define is like an exception is a runtime error which occurs during program execution. And terminates the program abnormally. It's going to terminate the program abnormally. So what is this exception and what is this abnormal termination? Let us understand using an example program. Let us go with the program exception demo. Open Eclipse and I click on project ends in new package. Let me store all exception related programs in a package. So let me create one package. exceptions. In this package, you create the new class. So right click on the package and say new class exception demo with main method. Now, so in this piece of code, in main method, we go with the message, begin of program, then. So what we are doing here, we are going with a class exception demo. In main method, we are just displaying a message, begin of program. Then see here, we have a new concept here today, int n1 equal to args of 0. Int n1 equal to args of 0, int n2 equal to args of 1. What is this args? If you observe to this main method, we are passing this string array args. So today we are going to understand what is the use of this string array args. So the use of string array args is used to store command line arguments. Is used to store what? Command line arguments. So what do you mean by command line arguments is when you are running the program at your command prompt, how to run the program using a command Java and the name of the class, and after class name we can pass some values separated by space. So these two values which you are passing during runtime when you are running the program, these values we call command line arguments. One way of giving input to the program. Then, so in this one, 10 and 5 are command line arguments. Then this 10 will go and store into args of 0 array and 5 will come and store into args 1. Then this args is what data type? String type. Args is what data type here? String type. So the value which you are storing 10 and 5 into args of 0 and args of 1, what type they are? String type. Can we assign a string value to integer directly? No. That's the reason we are getting error here. Then how to rectify this error? Which concept we need to use to remove this error? Yes, last class only we discussed on this.
Typecasting.
No. Typecasting is between primitive to primitive, reference to reference only. But here reference to primitive means string to primitive. Last class only we discussed. Parsing. Okay, we have to use what? Parsing. So since we want to convert into primitive integer, which proper class we have to use? Integer. We have to use the proper class here. Integer with a static method parsing args of 0. Args of 0. Similar way, convert here integer dot parsing args of 1. Now the value present in n1 is what? 10. The value present in n2 is 5. Now let us divide first number with second number. Int result equal to n1 by n2. Then we'll print the value of result. Then we'll go with the message end of program. Now let us run this program. But in this program, we have to pass the command line arguments. So how to pass command line arguments in Eclipse is we have to right click on the program and say run as run configurations. Right click on your program, run as run configurations. Then go to this arguments tab, and here in program arguments, we have to pass the value separated by space. So here I'm passing 10 and 5. Now click on run button. Now see. Okay. Yeah, we have to one more point here. When you say run as run configurations, we have to choose the class which you want to run. That is important here. We have to choose here in main class which you want to run. So go to search and the class what you want to run here, exception demo. Then go to arguments and pass the arguments which you want to pass to the program. Now say run. See what you are getting. See, begin of program, result is 2, and end of program. So if you run the same code again, run as, run configurations, see the class which you want to run, go to arguments, and if I pass 10 and 0, what is 10 by 0? 10 divided by 0 is undefined. Any number divided by 0 is undefined. Whereas in case of Java, it goes with an exception. See here, what it's saying, begin of program, exception in thread main, java.land.arithmetic exception. It's a class. Arithmetic exception is a class, belongs to java.land package, and the message is see divide by 0, and in which line number you are getting error? 7. Line number 7 we are getting exception. Okay, so after throwing the exception, is the remaining piece of code getting executed? Are you getting message end of program? No. This only the meaning called as abnormal termination. Once the exception is thrown to you, the remaining piece of code will not get executed. So this point only we call abnormal termination of the application. Got it, everyone? The meaning of exception and abnormal termination. Right? Then, so is it a good programming here? No. So once we get exception, we have to inform the user what went wrong. In this example, we have to go with the message divide by 0 not allowed, and we should continue with the remaining piece of code. That's always a good programming practice. So that only we call exception handling. That only we say what? Exception handling. So exception handling is used to avoid abnormal termination of application. It is used to avoid abnormal termination of application and makes the program robust, means strong. How to go with this exception handling? So for this, we have to use the keywords, 5 keywords, we are in totally 5 keywords in exception handling. They are try, catch, finally, throw, and throws. In this try, catch, finally we call them as blocks. Throw and throws we call them as classes. Today let us initially see try and catch block. Try and catch block. The syntax of try and catch block is we use a keyword try, and in this try block we keep the set of statements which you feel exception may occur. In this try block we keep the set of statements which you feel exception may occur. If you get an exception in try block, then Java runtime will throw an exception. If you get an exception in try block, Java runtime will throw an exception. What are the exceptions Java runtime is throwing? We are going to catch it by using catch block. Using exception class. Exception is a predefined class. So whatever the exception it has thrown, that will come and store into this reference. And in this catch block, we handle the exception. The meaning of handle the exception is giving message to the user what went wrong. Okay, so let me document. If an exception occurs in try block, the Java runtime will throw an exception which is caught by catch block. It's caught by catch block and handles the exception. Very important point. And the remaining part of try block will not get executed. The remaining part of try block will not get executed. Means if you are getting exception in statement 2, the control will jump from here to this one, catch block. The control will jump to catch block. This catch block will get executed and handles the exception, and after that it continues down. The remaining part of try block will not get executed. So this point is important for tomorrow's class. Right? Now let us come back to this program and apply this try and catch block in our program. So in this program, in which statement we are getting exception? This statement. In this statement we are getting exception. That is when we give second number as 0, we get exception. So keep this piece of code in try block. Keep this piece of code in try block. Now, if this statement executes properly, then only we should display the result. Means displaying result is dependent on above statement. Since it is dependent on above statement, keep this displaying result also in try block. Now write here catch and say exception. It's a predefined class, and here we handle the exception by going with the message divide by 0, not allowed. Display the message divide by 0, not allowed. Now let us run the program. Right click and say run as. Run configurations. Go to run configurations. See the class which you want to run. Go to arguments, and if I pass 10 and 5, so when I say run, no issues, we are getting the result. Now if you run the code again, and if I say run as run configurations 10 and 0, now this time we are going with 0, which is an exception. See what you are getting? See begin of program, we are getting the message divide by 0, not allowed, and it's even continuing with remaining piece of code. So just using this try and catch block concept only, exception handling. Clear everyone? Any questions? Right? Now we want to display this message in red color to highlight the message. So to display red color, we have to use, instead of out, we have to use ERR. When we say ERR, the message will come in what? Red color here. Right? Now let us understand more of this exception handling. So we are having a concept here, exception hierarchy. What is the topmost class in Java hierarchy? What is the topmost class in Java hierarchy? Last class we discussed. Object. Never forget this. Object is the topmost class in Java hierarchy. Under exception hierarchy, the topmost class is throwable. Under exception hierarchy, the topmost class is throwable. And throwable is a subclass of exception. It is a subclass of what? Exception. Then under throwable, it goes with the two subclasses. Under throwable, it goes with the two subclasses. One is exception, and one more is error. One is exception and one more is error. Error is something like which we cannot handle. Once it occurs, the program has to get terminated. Like example, JVM running out of memory. So when JVM is only running out of memory, as a programmer, what we can do? Nothing. It has to get terminated only. So we are not worried about error part. So as a programmer, we consider only an exception. Under exception, it goes with the subclasses. Under exception, it goes with the subclasses. It goes with the subclasses like runtime exception, runtime exception, IO exception, runtime exception, IO exception, then interrupted exception, SQL exception, and user defined exceptions. In this diagram, all are classes. In this diagram, all are classes except user defined exceptions. So what is this user defined exceptions? We'll be discussing in tomorrow's class. Now, under runtime exception, again we are having some subclasses. Under runtime, we are having some subclasses like arithmetic exception, which we have seen in the previous program, divided by 0. Then array index, out of bounds exception, index, out of bounds exception, negative array size exception, number format exception, null pointer exception, like this. I'm listing out only some of the exceptions which we can understand in this exception handling topic. As the days goes on, we'll be learning some more new exceptions. Here in this one, we are having one more very important interview question, that is categories of exceptions. Categories. We are in two categories. They are checked exceptions. They are checked exceptions and unchecked exceptions. Checked and unchecked, very important during intro times. Checked and unchecked. So let us initially understand about unchecked first. If you take the previous example program, when we got error during runtime, does the compiler know about this error? No, because it depends on data, and the data is given during runtime. So that's the reason for compiler it won't have idea on these errors. That's the reason for compiler it is categorized as unchecked. So what are unchecked is all runtime exceptions. All runtime exceptions like arithmetic exception, number format exception, etc. are unchecked exceptions. Then what are checked exceptions? Other than runtime exceptions. Other than runtime exceptions like IO exception, SQL exception, etc. are checked exceptions. Checked exceptions are taken care by compiler. In the case of checked exceptions, we have to just follow a syntax rule. Whereas unchecked exception, programmer has to take care of unchecked exceptions. So in this one, these all runtime exceptions comes under category unchecked. Other than runtime exceptions comes under the category checked. Okay. So checked is like simple syntax rule. So we'll understand what is that syntax rule also. So let us initially understand about checked exceptions. What are checked exceptions is other than runtime exceptions like IO exception, SQL exception, user defined exceptions, even user defined, etc. are checked exceptions. Now let us understand more of this checked using a program. Open Eclipse, right click on exceptions package and say new class checked exception demo. Main method. Now in this one, in main method we are going to call a method int n equal to system.in.read. We are calling a method what? System.in.read. The use of system.out.println is it is used to display messages or value of variables on screen, and system.in.read is used to read a value from keyboard. To read a value from keyboard, we use system.in.read. But if you observe, under this read method, we are getting compile time error. So understanding that compile time error is the main concept of checked exceptions. So let us understand why we are getting error. So for that, I need to open an API. Let me open this. One of the API called as input stream in Java. Don't worry what is input stream, all those things now. Input stream in Java. And if you open this API docs.oracle.com, if you open this, here you can find about class input stream. And if you scroll down, you can see the methods here. See, just observe the methods. See here, after read method, you can see throws IO exception. Throws keyword is important here. To understand checked exceptions, throws keyword is important. So after read method, you can see throws the name of the exception, what it is throwing. Like that, we are having so many methods here. Skip method also throws IO exception. Available also throws IO exception. Close also throws IO exception. Like that in Java, there are so many methods which throws some exception. I'm not worried what exception it is. So in Java, we are having so many methods which throws some exception. Now, whenever you call a method, if this method is throwing some exception, then the syntax rule is we have to call this method in between try and catch block. See the message given by Eclipse, unhandled exception type IO exception surrounded with the try and catch. So if you just click here, the code will be written for you. Just click here. So checked exceptions are simple, just a simple click operation. That's it. Simple click we have to do. So now see, there is no error now. Or one more way, one more syntax here. When you call a method like system.in.read, if a method is throwing some exception, either you can call this method in between try and catch block, and one more case, see, add throws declaration. Even if you just click here add throws declaration, after the method it will add throws the exception what it is throwing. So whenever you call a method and if that method is throwing some exception, call that method in between try and catch block or specify throws the exception what it is throwing along with the method. So this concept is only checked exceptions. Just a syntax rule we have to follow. Okay, somewhat confusion currently, but as the days goes on, like tomorrow we will understand some more about checked exception when we come to user defined exceptions. When we go with multi-threading, there again you will see about this checked exception example, then the concept will be 100% clear to you where to use checked exceptions. It's nothing, simple click operation in Eclipse. So what is the point to remember here? If a method throws an exception, then this method need to be caught. Need to be caught. Need to be caught means try and catch block. Or declared to be thrown. Means throws keyword. Anything is fine. Right? So any questions anyone up to here? No. Let us move to the next one. This runtime exceptions, that is unchecked exceptions. Let us understand about runtime exceptions or unchecked. Anything is fine. So let us go with this runtime exceptions. What are these runtime exceptions? Is the exceptions which occur during program execution are runtime exceptions. For getting exception during runtime, they are runtime exceptions. All runtime exceptions, very important point, all runtime exceptions are subclasses of runtime exception class. If you are getting a runtime exception means it is a subclass of which class? Runtime exception class. This is a blind rule. All runtime exceptions, one more blind rule, all runtime exceptions are categorized as unchecked exceptions. If you are getting a runtime exception means it's categorized as unchecked exception and it is a subclass of runtime exception class. This is a simple blind rule we should remember. Now let us understand the runtime exceptions using a program. Runtime exception demo. So in this one we will be discussing about these exceptions, when these exceptions are going to occur. Right click on exceptions package and say new class runtime exception demo. Main method. In this one, let us initially see about arithmetic exception. Already we know when we get arithmetic exception. So when we get arithmetic exception, when you divide any number by 0, we get arithmetic exception. So here when we run, we are getting, see the message, exception in thread main, java.land.arithmetic exception divided by 0. The message is divided by 0. Now, in this program, we are trying to understand when which exception is going to occur, not how to handle. How to handle means simply keep the code in try and catch block. But the objective in this program is we want to know when which exception is going to occur. That's only the objective, not how to handle. So if you are not handling, it won't go to the remaining piece of code. So in order to make our program to go to the remaining piece of code without handling means just to keep this code in the form of comments. Just to keep the code in comments so that we can discuss next exception. The next one, array index out of bounds exception. Array index out of bounds exception. Now, for this one, we are creating an array n equal to with values 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Now, in the code, if you write in SOP, if you want to take the value of n of 2, what is the value at n of 2 index? 0, 1, 2. N of 2 index is what here? 30. N of 2 index is 30. So it's going to display the value 30. Now if you write n of 8, is 8 present in the index here? No. So we are trying to access an array element which is out of index. Then it throws what exception? Array index out of bound exception. So here when we run, we get the exception java.line.array index out of bounds exception. Hit the code in comments so that we can go to the next one. String index out of bounds exception. In this one, if you take a string s equal to hello, and in the program, if you write s dot character at one index. What is a character at one index? A. Because whenever we say index, remember we have to count from 0, 0, 1. So one index is what? A. No, but if you write character at 8 index, since 8 is out of index and since it is related to strings, we get the exception, string index out of bounds exception. Any questions, anyone?
Yes, sir. Here, 5 elements is there. You mentioned 8. That's why we're getting the index bound exception, right,
Right,
sir?
right, correct.
Thank you, sir.
Right, good. Okay, so string index out of bounds exception, since this is related to strings here. Now, if you take the next one, very simple one, negative array size exception. When you are allocating memory for arrays, and if the size of the array is a negative value, when we give the size of the array as negative, then we get negative array size exception. The next one important, number format exception. Number format exception. If you take a string s equal to some xx, now we want to convert into primitive integer. How to convert into primitive integer? Parsing. Integer dot parseInt of s. What is the value present in s variable? Xx. So can we convert xx into numeric type? Not possible. Number type? Not possible. So when you are converting a string into number type, which is not possible, when your string contains alphabets or alphanumerics, we cannot convert into number type. In that case, we get number format exception. When we run, we get number format exception. The next one, null pointer exception. In this case, if you take a string s equal to null, this is not only for string. This is not only for string, any object you take, and if you are pointing to null, and by using that object, if you access any members of the class, by using object, if you access any members of class, since s is pointing toward null, by using this null reference, if you access any members of your class, then it throws null pointer exception. Clear everyone? Any questions? Right, let me document all these words. Arithmetic exception. When we get arithmetic exception, trying to divide a number by 0. Array index out of bounds exception. Trying to access an array element which is out of index. String index out of bounds exception. Trying to access a character of a string which is out of index. Negative array size exception. Negative array size exception. When the given array size is negative. Number format exception. trying to convert a string into number type, which is not possible. Null pointer exception. Trying to access the members of the class. When the object of the class is pointing to null. Right? So please recap this. All these are important. And as the days goes on, like when we go to this multi-threading collection, cyber package, so many places, we will be learning some more new runtime exceptions. Got it? Any questions? Right? So let me stop here today, and the remaining part will continue tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll complete exception handling. So tomorrow we are going to discuss about the remaining topics like try with multiple catch blocks, finally block. Then we go with this one like user defined exceptions. Okay, so these all things will complete tomorrow. Thank you all.